Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the 10X call. And we are going to jump right into the call here. Let me just get my screen up. Here we go. And then play. Yes. So the last call that we did, there were a couple things that I asked you to look at. First of all, I wanted you to read through chapter 12, and then I wanted you to look in your life successes, in your life successes, how did 10X show up? You didn't know it was 10X. It's kind of like one of the things that I shared about was how I ended up in California. I was, let me see, how old was I? I was in my early 20s when I decided that I wanted to really accomplish something. I wanted a promotion with the company I was working with. At that time, it was Bristol Myers Squibb. I wanted to move to a major metropolitan area, like live in California, perhaps. And I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes. What else? Was there anything else? Oh, I wanted to buy a home. And so I applied 10X Action. I didn't realize it was 10X Action, but I put my blinders on, you know, like a racehorse. If you want a racehorse to really run, you put their blinders on so all they can see is what's ahead of them, and that's where they go. So if you want to achieve success in a 10X way, you got to put your blinders on. And I put my blinders on and got bought my home with no money down. I don't know if you could do that today, but this was the early 80s. And then a year later, I got promoted. Within 6 months, transferred to California. Did I already say I got free from cigarettes? Got free from cigarettes. Oh my gosh. From that point on, my life completely changed. And on the last call, what I said was, so what am I up to now? Where am I going to bring 10X? And there's a part of me that will argue for, I already do that. I do that in so many areas, but I have to put that aside and say, wait a minute, that's me being reasonable. Where would I put it now? Well, I have a distributor in the beauty industry that I've taken on as a project, and I'm committed to building this distributor to $100,000 sales per month by the end of the year. To give you the scope of that, as of today, they did $2,000 for January. I have no idea where they are in February yet. So in order for me to get them from the 2,000 to the 100,000, it's going to take 10-time action, 10-time thinking, 10-time being, which makes this webinar extremely valuable for me. You want to look for yourself. What's going to make it extremely valuable for you? So there are 4 degrees of action. Grant says most people fail only because they're operating at the wrong degree of action. To simplify action, we're going to break it down. We're going to break down your choices into 4 simple categories or degrees of action. Your 4 choices are: number 1, simply do nothing. Number 2, retreat. Number 3, take normal levels of action. And number 4, take massive action. Massive action. Though it might sound far-fetched, massive action is the most natural state of action there is for all of us. Now, I don't know about you, but that does not have a place yet to live in my brain. Does it have a place to live in your brain? Though it might sound far-fetched, yes, it does. Massive action is the most natural state of action there is for all of us. Now, the only way I can make this fit in my brain is to tell you that when I'm in massive action, and currently I'm in massive action, and now I've got a place to put that massive action, that's when I'm most excited. That's when I have the most fun. That's when getting up in the morning is more appealing. I don't mind doing it earlier, and I don't mind going for it a little later. Massive action is actually the level of action that creates new problems. And until you create problems, new problems, you're not truly operating at the fourth stage of action. I approached every day of my life. Scratch that. I approached every day, like my life depended on the actions I took. When you start operating at the fourth degree of action, your mindset will shift, and so will your results. In order to stand out from the crowd and for your customers to even consider your products, your services, your organization, you must take massive action. So let's use this exercise. When was a time in your life when you were taking massive action and winning? Now listen, I know that you guys aren't going to share here on the line, and some of you chose not to show up on the webinar itself. So therefore, I've got to ask you to look and then email me a response sometime today. When was a time in your life when you were taking massive action and winning? We have one distributor right now that we started this game back in October with them. It's actually, we started late September. And October, things got laid out. But November, they were 12% up. December, 12% up. January, 18% up. My goal for them is to be 50% up by the end of the year. What will you immediately create when you take massive action? What will you immediately create? Think about it. Think about it. New problems. Now listen, if you're geared to avoid problems, which you cannot do because life is simply a series of problems, but if you're geared to avoid problems, then this work, this thing that we're doing, the 10-time rule, will be very hard for you to grasp. But eventually, if you'll embrace problems, as this is life, and if I have bigger problems, then I'm actually operating with massive action, then it becomes exciting. What can you expect those who don't take massive action to say to those of you who do? Oh, you work way too hard. You know, you really need to take a break. You really need to slow down. You need a vacation. Listen, I could say enough of those things to myself. I think it's probably fair to ask those around me not to give me those ways out, if you will. What other things might happen as you start to take massive action? Think about it. What are some other things that might happen? Well, you might start to get criticized, ridiculed. Some people might talk about you in a way that's not so flattering. But guess what? They are talking about you. Average is a failing formula. This addiction to average, boy, can you see the addiction to mediocre or the addiction to average or trying to look for a nice plateau? I don't know if you're geared that way. I know I am. I'm kind of like, look for how to have life just work, and let's not upset it too much because, you know, life itself will upset itself all by itself. But there's an addiction to average, and that kills the possibility of making your dreams a reality. When average actions hit any resistance, so think about it, you're kind of going along, and then all of a sudden you hit a wall. There's competition. There's a lack of interest in what you have to offer. There's a challenging or negative market condition, or maybe all of them combined. You find the project you've taken on tumbling down. The best way to plan is to condition your thinking. The best way to plan is to condition your thinking and your actions. I'm going to say it again. The best way to plan is to condition your thinking and your action to 10x levels. Succeed so big that no one person or event or series of missteps can take you down. You need to change your commitment and thinking to be far above any concepts of average. I promise that when you do so, you'll immediately start influencing other areas of your life. So let's take a look at the exercise. Write down the names of people who you know operate at only average levels. Now, I have a list, but I'd be daggone if I say that list out loud on a public webinar. But I have a few. Do you have a few? Are you on that list? Write down 3 times in your life when average actions caused you to come up short. Well, I have one. Well, no, I have 3. I'll give you 3. So my number 1 is most current, the new distributor that I really thought that we would hit the road, like hit the ground really running. And I organized this work to help fuel that, because I know in order to have anything new, we got to interrupt the ordinary thinking. And I did not interrupt my own ordinary thinking about how I was going to have this work for them and with them. So that was missing for me. I was too average in how I put that together. Another area where I came up short because of average actions. Last year in my coaching business, I maintained my financial results of the year before. And it was all from average actions. I really did not 10x it this year in that area. Let's see, a third area. My physical fitness. I've been very much engaged in my physical fitness and my health, gosh, since I was 23 years old. Excuse me, 22 years old. And you know what? 20 years old, in fact, is when I first joined the gym, and I really made it a point that I made it to the gym. And I started taking care of myself in ways that I hadn't before. This past year, I mean, I'm still making it to the gym, but it has not gotten the attention that it used to. That's over. This past year's over, 2018, 10xing 2019, everything. Everything's getting 10x. Write down the names of people who you know are exceptional and describe how they're different from average. Well, a coach that I had for many years, she's dead now. She died last year or the year before, Patricia McDade. She was exceptional. She always stood out in a crowd. She always thought impossibility, but she never made other people feel less than or that they didn't have any hope. That was really, really awesome. And she, you know, she made a lot of money, and she helped a lot of people make a lot of money. She was very popular, and she made a lot of people popular. One of my best friends, Bobby always went the extra mile. You know, Grant Cardone says there's no traffic jams in the extra mile. He always went the extra mile, and people admired that about him, and it was very exceptional. And then the last one I'll say is my brother Ron and brother Dan. They both took on possibility around the family business that they generated. And to keep that going is exceptional. And then lastly, Landmark Education as a organization. And the reason I say them is because in order to maintain the kind of business that it is, they have to keep reinventing integrity of the company for themselves. And what it takes to keep reinventing integrity when you're a worldwide organization, what that must take is unbelievable. And whenever I'm around it, I'm inspired by that. And then lastly, I'm going to include my spouse and myself, because when it comes to our relationship, we are not average. We do things, we take actions, we put in things that nobody else does, and we keep love alive as a result of that. Last one, look up the definition of average as an adjective and write it here. The things upon which your life depends most are based on the actions you take daily. That is why I make sure to always do two things. This is Grant speaking. Number one, I write my goals down every day. And number two, I choose objectives that are just out of reach. Making a note here. Average goal setting cannot and will not fuel massive 10x actions. If you approach an endeavor with average thinking, you will start to give up the moment you come up against any challenges, resistance, or less than optimal conditions, unless you have some big juicy purpose as your engine. I'm going to say that whole paragraph again and listen closely for yourself. Average goal setting cannot and will not fuel massive 10x actions. So if I just want to maintain this year the same financial income from last year, that is average goal setting. It's not going to cause me to take 10-time action. No way. It's not going to fuel that. If you approach an endeavor with average thinking, that's average thinking, everything can just stay the same, you will start to give up the moment you come up against any challenges, any resistance, or less than optimal conditions. You got to have a big, juicy purpose. Goals, 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 goals. To get through resistance, you must have a big reason to get there. The bigger and more unrealistic your goals are, and the more they're aligned to your purpose and duty, the more they'll energize and fuel your actions. Steve Jobs' goal, for instance, is to ding the universe, to create products that forever change our planet. Look at what he's done with Apple and Pixar. They take the following into account. Number one, you are setting these for you, not for anyone else. That's a big one. When you're writing down these goals, you're setting them for you, not anyone else. Number two, anything is possible. Number three, you have much more potential than you realize. Number four, success, my favorite line, is your duty, your obligation, and your responsibility. And number five, there's no shortage of success. Everybody can have it. It's not like if you've got it, nobody else can. And number six, regardless of the size of the goal, little bitty goal, great big goal, either one's going to require work. The 10X rule removes the concepts of luck and chance from your business equation and shows you exactly what mindset you must embrace in order to lock in massive success. Number one, set 10-time targets. Number two, align them with your other purposes. Number three, write them down every day when you wake up and before you go to sleep. So if you will, please take a picture of this slide or write it down, because this is your assignment. Number one, I want you to set some 10X targets, goals. Number two, I want you to align those goals with other purposes. Like maybe you have a huge purpose to be the best dad on the planet. Well, how will your 10X targets help you fulfill on that purpose or intention? I want to be regarded worldwide as the best couples coach on the planet. How will my 10x targets align with that goal? Then lastly, write them down every day. Listen, you don't have to have a ton of them. 3, 4, 5. I think 5 would be perfect. But 3, 4, 5 is good. Write them down every day when you wake up and before you go to sleep. Now, we're going to complete this morning's call. Thank you, those of you who joined me by phone. I really, really love it when you get on the webinar itself so you can see the slides. But that's okay. This is recorded, and I am going to post it. In 2 weeks, we'll be back again, and I'd like for you to read through chapter 20. Okay, so listen to or read through chapter 20, and I think that's it. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.